Hey, what's going on everyone? I have a quick update, or really just answering questions that a lot of you are asking about the Myrmidon build, as well as, unfortunately, a build change that I'm a little bit annoyed about. Today I'm going to talk about the Flagship, what the build is for that. Spoiler alert, it's what I said in the first video, and then a few other thoughts on countermeasures as we get started. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So the short answer for the Flagship is that it's going to be a damage build, the same build as I showed for the other damage ships at the start of my video. That's because it has the same base 100 million armor, so there's no reason to put this as a higher evade tank. We only run the high evade tank when there's both Kingkiller in the target, and the Flagship has a base higher armor points. If this had 120 million base, we'd put high evade on it, but we don't need to do that. It's just going to be one of your regular 5 ships. It doesn't matter. It could be the anti-ship, it could be the damage ship, it could be the gale ship. Really doesn't matter. That's the short update on the Flagship, and we'll keep that as is. Unfortunately, the other update that we do have a build change is if you are looking at this build, you can see I'm stacking both full focus choke and Corrosive Battery III on the same ship, and it's allowing me to do that. That didn't happen when I made my first video when we were going through the builds for the Myrmidon. You couldn't do it. That's because the Corrosive Battery III has a 65% corrosive damage buff and Full Focus Choke has a 66. This puts both of these in the quote-unquote large buff category, which means by default, you're not able to stack Corrosive Battery III and Full Focus Choke. You could actually stack Corrosive Battery II because this is only a 40% damage buff, which is not in the large buff category. I actually put this in bug reports asking if this was intentional on April 17th there when I was going through the build for this stuff. Didn't get an answer for that. I also put it in a different, easier to see format later that same day. Again, this is April 18th, might be the next day there, asking if this is intentional. And the best answer I got was from one of the moderators who's really helpful and explained the full damage buff thing. Didn't get an answer from Kixeye. I also put it in a different chat that Kixeye sometimes answers more, at least used to answer more in, but again, got no answer. So I assumed it was intentional, built my ships that way. I have it on 2 of my ships. Unfortunately, I need to take it off because I saw a few people asking about this in TFC, so I sort of forwarded those complaints into bug reports and said, gave the explanation, and actually got a response from them that said that, I'll let you read this on screen here, which I appreciate the response. I wish they would respond to at least like 1/10 of the bug reports I put in. And they said they're changing it. This is not on the update notes anywhere or anything like that. They're changing it, allowing us to use both of them. I suppose that's a good thing, and it means that we can use both Corrosive Battery III and Full Focus Choke on our ships. I suppose it's good, but the problem is I already have my ships built. I'm sure many of you do too. I've got my Flagship already has that on there and is upgrading, and then I've got a damage ship at U3. Some of you might even have a second one using both Corrosive Battery II and Full Focus Choke. That means that unfortunately I've got to do some changes, and I have my ship built at the best possible build when we got the ship and got the XP target, and it has, as you can see, Corrosive Battery II. Now I've got to refit that off, which I suppose is instant, and add Corrosive Battery III, which unfortunately is going to take, 12 hours, 16 hours. I suppose I could check what that really is going to be there, but, let's see, 4 days, 3 hours, putting on Corrosive Battery III. It's not the end of the world. It is a little bit annoying. It goes up to, just about 21 hours minus the 20% advanced slab, maybe a little bit longer than that. So a 1-day token would save this for each ship, but I don't really expect that to happen. In short, I'm a little annoyed that Kixeye doesn't realize that we need to start building our ships the second we get them, which means we need to know what's in the targets, and that needs to be finalized the second we get them. That's enough on Corrosive Battery III. I'll try and stay positive about it and not talk about it too much further, but again, I'm a little annoyed that the stuff I already have built is now no longer the best because of a bug that I reported 2 or 3 times and it wasn't responded to. The other thing I want to discuss, or should say, is, also there's another bug here that wasn't responded to. This CIC is only available at U1 and it doesn't show that, but that's a different story. The other thing we need to talk about is Gales versus MTS3s versus Antis. I reported again a few times that Gales were working in the targets, and I told them If you change this and it's not working, a lot of people are going to be really, really upset because, again, we're building our fleets based on what was in the VXP targets. And honestly, as some of you know, there's some testing that happens ahead of time. I brought it up there as well, and twice, and never really got a satisfactory answer. The strategy guide, as far as I know, is still wrong. So the Gales here, again, are actually, we've been told, are going to be the best countermeasures to use. But they don't really like the fact that Gales are shooting down 100% of the incoming UAVs. What they've said they're going to do is maybe what I'm assuming is they're going to put enough UAVs in the target that it overwhelms however many Gales you have. But if about 10 to 15% get through with 4 Gales, all you have to do to stop that is add a 5th one. It's that simple. You might want to consider saving a token to determine how many Gales you need to use. I have 4 on my anti-ship right now, and I don't think I'm going to change it. The other thing they could do is add 1 turret, 1 out of every 10 turrets or so, and give it 100% anti-explosive evade, but they were clear that Gales are supposed to be the best countermeasure to use in the target. If they're not, I'm going to be really, really upset, just to tell you all that. So Gales should work. One thing that a few people are using, which I didn't discuss in my first video, was multiform anti-missile, which is a really interesting blueprint because it actually fires at let's see if I even have it here. It looks like I do. This thing fires at missiles, but fires at them multiple times, so it works like Gales against missiles, and that you keep shooting against it till it's taken down. The disadvantage is you need so many of these things on your ships. You need like 2, maybe even 3 dedicated anti-ships, which to me loses way too much firepower. Billy has a build on Discord if you're interested in checking that out further. I don't think I'm going to use those, although I will be interested to see how they work in the actual raid itself. So that's something that you all may want to think about. If you're interested in any of that, the Kixeye has added prizes under Assault Tech. They have added the multiform anti-missile, as well as, and thank God for this one, countermeasure equipment 2 right here. I wish they put 1 and 3 maybe, but countermeasure equipment 2 is in Pillage, which is very useful. If you don't remember why I'm using this, it's so that my MDS3s do not outrange my Gales, which is really, really important for these targets. So that's the short story, is that the Flagship is just a regular ship. It's not an evade tank. The build I showed you in the first video I made will work completely fine. If you do want to optimize your build and maybe haven't finished it yet or have some extra time to refit, you are going to want to refit off countermeasure, or are going to want to refit off Corrosive Battery 2 and use Corrosive Battery 3 if you really just want the best possible build. And I'm annoyed that they didn't really reply earlier. It seems like a lot of us are further behind on our Myrmidon builds than usual, and I think that's because at least I don't actually have all my labs completely done, which means that it takes longer to refit on armors, takes longer to refit on weapons, and longer to refit on specials. So I've got 1 ship still at U2, 2 ships at U3, but no armor on this one. This one's fully armored. This one has 1 plate of armor. The Flagship has no armor on it yet and is going to be upgrading to U2, and maybe I'll do a few refits before the start of the raid. The nice thing is the Flagship does have a 190k survival boost, which means that the survival from the armor of 65k is less important because you already have so much survival on the fleet. And again, that's because our labs and stuff are still upgrading. You can see my advanced lab right here just got started. So those are my brief thoughts on the build update for the Myrmidon, which is basically what I told you before works, although if you really want the best possible build, Kixeye has made it so you have to take off Corrosive Battery 2 and put on Corrosive Battery 3. If you have any more questions, let me know, and I'll do my best to reply to those in the comments. As always, thank you to channel members whose names appear on the end screen now. And with that said, this is Derpy signing out, helping you be a better pirate.